Looks like the Consigliere has been hit with, 15 indictments, 15 charges against Weisselberg? That poor bastard. Oh, by the way, Consigliere, would you like a working definition of Consigliere? I know we've all seen The Godfather. We've all read the books. But just for shits and giggles, Consigliere is a position within the leadership structure of the mafia. That's what Weisselberg was. He's like an advisor or counselor to the boss. And he also, the Consigliere, has the extra responsibility when the mobster leadership gets together. The Consigliere can represent the boss in those important meetings. So it's a pretty powerful position. Usually the Consigliere, and I shouldn't say usually, always the Consigliere is a close, trusted friend and confidant. You might call it the mob version of an elder statesman. This shit just cracks me up. I swear to God it does. He's also an advisor to the boss in a mafia crime family, and sometimes the Consigliere is his, right-hand man. But by the very nature of this job, the title, the responsibilities, Consigliere is one of the few in the family who can argue with the boss and not have his head blown off, And he supposedly, the Consigliere is devoid of any ambition of his own. He just wants to work for the boss of all bosses, where he also dispenses advice to the boss that's supposed to not reflect the Consigliere's own interests. It's all for the boss. You know what I'm saying? All right, excuse me. But that is a working definition. Consigliere is a very important person in the mafia crime families. And if any still exist, who knows anymore? It's like the mafia crime families have been replaced with these teeny-weeny insurrectionist types, I'm talking about the 3%ers and the Proud Boys and the Q crazies. Anyway, so Weisselberg, top executive in the Trump organization, charged in with all these counts. Also, the Trump organization itself has been charged a 15-year-long tax scheme. Now, of course, it's much longer than that, but I guess this is what the prosecutors have to go on. This is the evidence that they feel is irrefutable and will wind up with most of these son of a bitches going to prison. And wouldn't it be fun to see Ivanka in prison? I mean, it really would. And Don Jr., where's he going to get his cocaine? Well, I guess he'll still get his cocaine in prison. What am I talking about? So, 15-year-long tax fraud scheme, the Trump organization. And also found Alan Weisselberg, what I call him, Weisselberg, the Consigliere. He was charged with avoiding taxes on almost $2 million in income, grand larceny, other charges. Poor Alan. I can't help but feel sorry for him. I shouldn't feel sorry for him. I should rejoice in the fact that finally, After 2 generations, into the 3rd generation of this scum-filled family of ripping people off and breaking people's hearts and running people into bankruptcy and lying and cheating and stealing and just being the most disgusting white scum people ever. Finally, the hammer of justice may be about to come down on Donald Trump's rather strange-looking head. Now, all this occurred at State Supreme Court in Manhattan. The charges against the Trump Organization and Weisselberg. And by the way, Trump, if you remember, he once praised Weisselberg for, quote, doing whatever was necessary to protect the bottom line. Yeah, okay. So these charges against Weisselberg and the Trump Organization come as a result of the district attorney in New York having this sweeping inquiry into the business practices of the Orange Vomit and his company. And with this massive multi-pronged indictment against the Trump Organization and the Consigliere, this is obviously an aggressive new phase of what the prosecutors in New York are going to do. I mean, this is just the beginning. As you've heard, I'm sure, all day long, many people on television news talking about this. This is the so-called proverbial, tip of the iceberg. Well, of course. Let me see, what else? The indictments against Weisselberg are what you would expect in a crime family indictment. Now, the prosecutors, who are also working with lawyers from the Office of the New York State Attorney General, Letitia James, also have investigated whether the Trump Organization failed to pay payroll taxes on what should have been taxable income. Oh, come on. This is like nibbling around the edges. You know it and I know it. This is the most corrupt family probably outside of organized crime in the history of the country. It really is. His lawyers, Weisselberg's lawyer said in a statement before he was arraigned today, Mr. Weisselberg intends to plead not guilty, and he will fight these charges in court. Yeah, which he did. He pled not guilty. He had to turn in his passport, but he's not being held held on the charges. He's been released on bond, of course. The Trump Organization also issued a statement saying that Weisselberg was being used. Oh, this is going to be a big surprise, what I'm about to say, right? You have no idea what's coming. Well, here it is. That Mr. Weisselberg was being used as a, quote, pawn in a scorched earth attempt to harm the former president, end quote. Oh, yeah, it's all about harming this beautiful, wonderful brother of Jesus, bleeding Christ, Donald Trump. That's what this is all about, right? Of course. Now, the broader investigation into the Orange Vomit and his business practices is continuing. Like I said, this is just the beginning. And they got the Consigliere, the top guy, Weisselberg, who knows not only everything that needs to be known about this scum-sucking bastard and all the years that he ripped people off and his filthy family did, but he also knows where the proverbial bodies are buried too, and there may be some real bodies, who knows? Weisselberg, of course, has pledged his complete devotion, which it just amazes me. How can you devote yourself to somebody as ignorant and useless and worthless as Donald Trump? I guess it was the money, right, Alan? I mean, he must have paid you a lot of money. Oh, well. The indictments against Weisselberg, the charges, I should say, against Weisselberg, and I guess there are 15 counts to the indictment, it obviously is the result of months of this increasing pressure on him to offer information that could help the inquiry into the Trump organization, how they lied and cheated, manipulated property values to get loans and tax benefits, and committed all sorts of financial crimes. And the filthy orange vomit has never, ever been held responsible for the shit that he's done to people. Never. And he'll never be held responsible for the shit that he did to this country. Both our foreign relations as well as the domestic situation. Trump just really was, I don't know, one of the worst. Now, Trump, of course, darn, he was not charged yet. But you got to admit, an indictment that carries, of the company that carries his name, kind of is a, if not a gut punch, certainly a slap across the face of the former president, just as he's resumed holding his rallies. The greatest witch hunt in the history of the human species. Yeah. And of course, the orange vomit has denounced the investigation as just political persecution. Oh, my God. What else? Oh, yeah. If you remember, back in 2016, and maybe a little bit earlier after Trump had decided he was going to be the last president of the United States, and he won the presidency by portraying himself as a political outsider with the business acumen to shake up Washington. Ta-da! My God. And as the New York Times reports, the company whose name he made famous on his reality television show, The Apprentice, the Trump Organization, might eventually be associated as much with criminal charges as it is with hotels and golf courses that bear his name. And if the company is found guilty, it could face fines or other penalties. Company, do you have anything to say for yourself? That's right. Companies can't talk, can they? The orange vomit mentioned this investigation only in passing during a Fox sewer appearance yesterday. As he listed his history of legal battles, he said, quote, "New York radical left prosecutors come after me. You got to always fight. You got to keep fighting." Well, orange vomit, there's something else you could do, too. A couple things. You could be honest. Tell the truth. I think the word truth to the orange vomit is like water was to the Wicked Witch of the West, I'm melting. Ah! Now, as far as Weisselberg is concerned, he's been working for the Trump crime family for nearly a half century. Started working for the old man, Trump's father, the Klansman. I don't get that. Weisselberg, you're a Jew. Why do you go to work for a Klan supporter? Well, whatever. Anyway, he has served as the Trump Organization's gatekeeper, Donald Trump, for more than 2 decades. And recently, he was running the business with Trump's bastard sons, the two that don't look anything alike because they don't have the same mother, obviously, while Trump was in the White House destroying the country from within. Now, Weisselberg, like a lot of people similar to him, he was a hard worker. He really was. I can only imagine. Well, somebody like Bernie Madoff, for example, how successful these people would have been if they would have gone straight, really. But Weisselberg once said he took, quote, no vacations, end quote, as if it were poison or something. Anyway, Corey Lewandowski, former Trump campaign official, wrote in the book that he co-authored, Let Trump Be Trump. I'm sure it was a wonderful read. But Lewandowski wrote that Weisselberg, quote, knows of every dime that leaves the building, end quote. Oh, Corey, that's such a, revealing statement. Gosh, you must have been on the inside too, right, Corey? So, now that he's facing actual charges, Weisselberg still could cooperate with the prosecutors if he wants to. Usually, consiglieres don't do that, though. They'll go to prison along with the boss of all bosses if necessary. So we'll see. Anyway, if Weisselberg pleads guilty and strikes a deal, even though he pled innocent this morning, he could do considerable damage to the orange vomit.
Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.